And here's Tiny Bear. She's chowing down. Looks like this is breakfast time. And all the kitties tend to like to eat all kind of en masse in the morning, but they eat very light, so I put out just a little bit on 2 trays. There's Tiny Bear, and this morning they got a combination of rabbit, and which is home prepared, and Red Cat, which is commercial. Now, this tray is almost empty too, so I put it out on 2 trays, and usually it's gone by, and sometimes I leave it out till noon. It goes out cold. They'll eat it cold, so it stays fresh. This is some of the Red Cat out of the tub. I'm going to put a little bit more in here. I don't like to waste this stuff because it's like, you know, gold. It's not cheap. So I put out a little bit at a time, and then when it's all gone, I'll add more. Usually kitties on raw can eat as much as they want. So when they stop eating, I stop adding the food. This is in the morning. In the afternoons, it's almost a free feed situation. They start getting real interested in food around 2 p.m. And I'll put out just 1 tray, and I just keep refilling it throughout the afternoon and then the evening. Of course, if you work during the day, then you would just simply feed them in the evening. And they all stream by, and the tray just keeps getting empty. And then I'll usually stop feeding them sometime in the mid to late evening. This is everything I need to mix up a batch of raw food for the kitties using pre-ground meat. I'm not going to go into the recipe, but I will provide you with research sources so that you can determine your own. This is keeping it pretty simple, and I think that that's fairly important. I've sourced, this meat actually comes from Utah, and this is rabbit. It's whole ground. The whole ground carcass usually means, and you want to verify this when you buy it, it means that it includes the entire animal, perhaps without the intestines and the fur, usually, but it should have the organs and the bone, and hopefully the head. This by itself is pretty nutritious for the cats. I do worry a little bit about rabbit because I believe that the rabbit meat is a little bit low in taurine, and then because I freeze it for feeding later, it could also destroy a little bit more of the taurine. Although I have noticed that commercial cat foods, this is one of the commercial cat foods that I feed. This is another of the commercial cat foods that I feed. This is a Red Cat. This is Feline's Pride. And I don't believe that either one includes taurine. Yes, Feline Pride does add taurine. Red Cat does not add taurine. Yet both are approved by the AAFCO as nutritious diets. So apparently Red Cat has determined that freezing their food does not deteriorate the taurine. Okay, those are the 2 commercial cat foods that I feed. This is rabbit, which I source, and usually it's what I do source is rabbit. Sometimes I'll get pre-ground chicken. I do add some supplements to it. It's because I want to make sure that it has everything in it. We've got the vitamin E. That's mostly as a preservative, because you're going to be freezing it. Vitamin B. I add some probiotics, which is optional. I add taurine. I also add salmon oil. And grapeseed oil is good for lubricating things for the hairball. That's also optional. This is just water. Some people are absolutely religious about it being bottled or distilled or whatever. I just use tap water. If I can drink it, I figure they can drink it. And I use as much water as needed in order to mix it up. Big mixing bowl, big heavy-duty spoon. This rabbit comes in different grinds. This is a fine grind. You can get it in a coarse grind. I've tried it both ways. I don't see anything wrong with feeding the cats coarse grind. I think it gives them some good crunchy stuff, some good work on their teeth and their jaws. And those are 4-pound bags. Occasionally, I will also add, these are chicken hearts and gizzards. And I just get these from the grocery store. I don't add them to the mix. When I prepare the food, it's just a treat once a week. And it's good for them to be chewing on something. If you can get your cats chewing on muscle meat, gizzards, bones are even better. I don't have much luck with having my cats chewing on bones. These two, vitamin E, vitamin B, come in capsule form. You open the capsule, sprinkle it in here. We've got it all pre-mixed. Once I get the rabbit meat emptied into the bowl, then I will mix that all in. I found taurine in the powder form, which is great because opening those capsules tends to be a pain in the butt. Same with the salmon oil. And there are some people that would probably criticize me for using this salmon oil out of one of these squirter things. I keep it refrigerated, and I buy it in small quantities because salmon oil can go rancid. But I don't like squeezing all those capsules, and I don't like the smell of it all over my hands. So we will get started here. Okay, we've got all the rabbit in the bowl. Got all of our supplements mixed up here. Start pouring it in. I started feeding raw food in 2004 out of pure desperation for a kitty that had inflammatory bowel disease. She was 13 and had been suffering from diarrhea for 10 years. And I had diarrhea all over the house. Tried all of the prescription diets and the medications. Finally went online to see if there was some other option. And I read a lot of anecdotal evidence that indicated that a raw diet had helped kitties with inflammatory bowel disease, and in some cases even cured them. So I switched 3 aging Persians, all with health issues. One of them had heart disease. One of them was recovering from intestinal lymphoma, which is actually associated with inflammatory bowel disease in some cases. She had had surgery for it and actually recovered. This was before I had changed their diet, so that had nothing to do with the diet change. But 3 aging Persians, and I shifted them over to a raw diet. Up until that point, I fed nothing but dry. Love feeding dry food. I put it out in a great big chicken feeder. You could leave it out for weeks, months. We'd go on trips, not worry about them having food out. So this was an enormous change for me. Not to say I just wasn't sure whether I was jumping on some stupid bandwagon. I've never been one to do that. Natural homeopathy stuff I tend to be very suspicious of. In any case, I did go with the raw, and Daisy's diarrhea stopped after about 2 weeks on the raw. She still had problems. A year later it started to come back, so it wasn't a cure. But by that time I was convinced. Since that time I've been totally convinced of the wet diet after a lot of my research. The wet diet, in my opinion, is the only way to go, whether it be raw or good quality canned food. The cats simply do not get enough moisture on dry food. Okay, we're putting the salmon oil here. We've got 12 pounds of meat we're mixing up here. That's the number of squirts per the recipe. And we're going to put some of this in too. I usually just put a teaspoon per pound. That's 3, 6, 9, 12. In any case, I started out grinding my own food. Getting a whole chicken, breaking it up at the grocery store, grinding it, or grinding just muscle meat and then adding a calcium substitute. This meat has the bone ground into it, and the organs ground into it. So there are a number of different recipes out there. And I really do not want anybody trying the raw diet unless they think it through. Because it needs to have balanced calcium, needs to have taurine, needs to have liver, and there are ways to do it that's pretty safe. And I've been doing it since 2004 and have raised 50 kittens on it, a number of pregnant queens, and have had no trouble. So I think it's been well tested. It's 8 years. Feeding trials for AACO are less than a year. And the number of cats, I believe, in a feeding trial is less than a dozen. Okay, here we go. A little bit more. Afternoon snack for Koi Koi. Get a little bit of snack. This spoonful's got some supplements mixed in too. Okay, it's all mixed up. We got supplements in it. Nice and moist, as you can see from our water. Got our containers out here, good and ready. We're going to start filling them up. Now, I used to label these and date them. Just in case you got a bad batch, you would know. I've sort of stopped doing that. I just make sure that I put the newest bunch in the back of the freezer. But in general, I've pretty much used up everything in the freezer by the time I get around to mixing up the next batch. A tub like this, of course, I usually mix it or lay it out on the trays for the kitties with the commercial food, so they have a choice. It's nice to give the kitties a bit of a choice. Also, some kitties will get tired of a food if you feed them nothing but the same food day in and day out. Some kitties are okay with it, but others will start going off that food. So I like to keep a little bit of variety rotating through. So a tub like this will last a day or two. Freeze it. Then when I'm ready, I keep one tub in the back of the refrigerator, defrosting, while I'm using out of the tub in the front. And it takes, of course, like I said, I've got 8 cats, and they're eating other food too. And so a tub will last a few days at least. And here we are, 12 pounds of Wabbit. Usually does make about 7 tubs worth. Ready to go into the freezer. Here we go. Got it all packed in the freezer. We've got stuff. I'll be using this stuff first, and then this is all the new stuff. I have a 5 cubic foot freezer in the garage, which is very handy. It allows you to order a quantity of meat. I can hold up to 100 pounds of meat in that freezer out there. And it makes it a little more economical than ordering a few pounds at a time. Remember, I will put the resources over top of this video from where you can order meat and find more information on recipes and that sort of thing.